Hey guys, Dr. Noah, Dr. Wanda Lee. Thought we'd talk about a little bit about a fun topic for many people out there. And Wanda Lee made this suggestion that we talk about gardening, and I was like, yeah, and all these crazy thoughts came to mind, like all my different fruit trees and all my berries and how to plant, and then Wanda Lee made this quick comment. Well, maybe we should talk about how to garden safely before even getting to be what you could plant. And then I just wound back and I said, yeah, because when this time comes, mid-April, early April, all I think about is planting, planting, planting. What plants am I going to get? What seeds am I going to get? What flowers am I going to get? Do I have to trim anything? And I don't think much about how that's going to impact my body. And I'll tell you, I took out a stiff rake and I was raking up and I was uh, mixing in some chicken manure. And for the next day after that, this was a week ago, I haven't been so sore since I couldn't even tell you. And I'm sure that happens to a lot of people. So Wanda Lee, before you even start planting your garden or thinking about it, are there things that you think about prior to starting health wise so you don't injure yourself doing something you really enjoy or love to do?
Well, the big thing for me, because I am not a particularly large person, is, having gradually gotten more tools that fit me. Because a lot of things, we had this awesome wheelbarrow, metal, like construction grade, bulletproof wheelbarrow. The thing weighs more than I do. And so pushing that thing around is a disaster for me. Like it's the sort of thing. I'm not very tall, so having tools that are a little bit shorter or a little bit lighter, a little bit easier to manage. That's sort of the backgrounder, I think, to be prepared. Now, you know, um, obviously, if the tools you have are working for you, that's great. But for me, changing those out to get something that was a little better fit made a huge difference. Especially raking. Raking is my nemesis. It is bad for me um, for whatever reason. I don't know if I don't do it properly. I'm just not built that way. But having better tools made a huge difference.
Yeah, raking is not so different than shoveling snow and chopping ice. And I think this year you really hurt yourself doing that this year,
The
right?
chopping ice was bad. Yeah, yeah. But we're feeling really lucky. We're in Nova Scotia. At sometimes this we still have a lot of snow. It's popping up on my Facebook page. 5 years ago we had 6 feet of snow in our backyard at this particular moment in time, and another Easter snowstorm had just happened. So we have no snow in our yard. I was out picking up sticks and uncovering and trimming, and it's just such a great time to get outside. Even if here we can't plant a whole lot yet, we still have quite a bit of frost on certain times, but we can get out and clean up and feel like we're ready for spring when the rest of it hits. You guys are a little
Yeah.
further ahead.
Yeah, I'm in North Jersey, so we start. I could start planting some herbs, and I could start planting some of the greens. But your comment on tools were really hit home. I remember last year I plant my grandmother's garden every year too, and I said, Graham, when you go to the store, pick up a couple tools because I don't want to keep transporting tools. I have all the metal tools, and she bought some really simple plastic, really light tools for her, and she had since passed, but she was 89 at the time, and those types of tools were perfect for her. These just really simple, light, cheap plastic tools. Some of the other things that for gardening that I don't own that I think are really good, particularly for older gardeners, and I live in an area that's heavily populated with very old Italian people, and they have their hats on and their old flannels and their khaki pants, and they walk around with like either things for their knees, like literally like knee pads, or they bring in little pads to put under their knees, or they bring around little stools so they can literally do this for longer. And that may not be necessary for somebody like our age, but I think having a little stool, having knee pads, having something to kneel on, I think is really great to protect your back and to protect your knees. Do you have any kind of gadgets like that or no?
Well, I like the knee pads as well. I don't have too much time that I spend on my knees, but and now where we're all staying at home and trying not to go out and do a whole lot, you could use a towel. yes, it's going to get dirty, but towels wash, or get an old towel that you can use to kneel on in the garden. Or I have found myself, I will take a paint can and carry it around to make a little stool that I can sort of sit on in the garden, because I don't have one of those little stooly things. But if I'm going to be in one spot for a long time or in one area, paint can. We can improvise with all kinds of things you already have around the house. And the big thing for me, because I like to get things done when I get out there, is just to pace myself a little bit better. And probably there's lots of us, we're excited, we're out in the yard, we're loving being outside, and next thing you know, it's been 2 hours and you didn't move, you didn't stretch, you didn't get up and walk around, you didn't stop breaking and take a break. So I think just trying to pace yourself is really important. If you have a cell phone, you can set a timer, so every 20 minutes you move, you get up and do something different, or maybe do some weeding for a while and then do some digging and then come back to the weeding or something like that.
Yeah, I think the pacing is a good idea, and that's how I do a lot of my stuff. Is I don't spend 8 hours or 12 hours. I do it in a little bit of little spurts because that's just how I could do it. But I think that's really really important as well. Um, what do you plant up in Nova Scotia, Wanda Lee?
Well, I've because over the years we had a vegetable garden in the backyard. We had two slightly raised beds, not high raised, but I love the raised beds. I would do that if I was doing it again. We actually just dug those out 2 summers ago, because it got to the point where we just weren't paying enough attention to them. So at this point, I try to do more of that kind of gardening on my deck. I've got a pot or two of tomatoes, a pot or two of peppers, some herbs, and keep those right on the deck, right outside the kitchen. So it's easy to run out and grab those. But we loved having the fresh veggies. When the kids were little, they could go out and pull a carrot and wash it off in the hose and eat it straight out of the ground. And it's just so nice to be able to teach people where their food comes from.
Yeah, and you don't, and that's a great point too. You don't need to have a lot of space to do some gardening. You could sprout in your kitchen. You
Mhm.
can have windowsill herb gardens. You can do small raised beds. You could do buckets. Um, but I think that nutrient diversity and density and learning where food comes from is so valuable that any type of planting you can do for yourself and for your kids and for your family, I think is really, 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 really important. Really important.
And right here now, a lot of the spring bulbs are just starting to pop up. We're just getting the crocuses and we're starting to see that little bit of color. So I love planting those because it gives you that first little bit of spring. And
Yeah,
I'm sure you guys are way ahead of that. But
we're I would say about a month ahead. I screwed up big time. My wife loves hyacinths and she loves the smell, and I was supposed to plant the bulbs in October and didn't, and so we have
oh
we have none.
no.
We got a couple random tulips popping up from I think people that planted them before we even bought our house, the old owners. But I have when we talk about calendars and putting in your in checklists in your book and your to-do list, I have in October already plant hyacinth bulbs for next year, so I don't forget. Do you plant any types of flowers? Growing up, my grandmother had an incredible flower garden and rose garden, and it was great when I had girlfriends as a teenager. I could just go there and pick a bunch of flowers. I don't plant a ton of flowers. I plant some around the house, but I have one rose bush. Do you have any flowers or anything that you like to plant?
I plant a few along the walkway here as well, but I have two absolutely massive um, hydrangeas. So they are quite big. And so they're a little bit more fallish. And then coming up soon, in this time of year, we have two incredible rhododendrons. So where we are, rhododendrons grow particularly well and huge. And these two that I have in my front bed are probably, well, we've been in this house 20 years, so probably 18 years old, and they're like 15, 16 feet high and huge. So they have those nice big pink and red, purple blooms coming up in the next month or so. I also have right outside my window here a magnolia tree. which will bloom soon as well. Although last year it had a little bug, so I treated it, and I've got my fingers crossed that it will survive. And we do have some wild roses and some lilac bushes around the property. I love the smell of lilacs; one of my favorites. But and then a few, buckets of flowers. But we tend to be kind of low maintenance on the shrub tree flowering side, just because deadheading. I'm just not good.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I've always been all about production, Wanda Lee. Like when I bought my house, and I have the typical North Jersey lot. It's not a huge lot, but the first thing I did when I bought my house is I looked at it and I said, where can I put my garden? Where can I plant the fruit trees? Where can I get the most production and still have a lot of yard space? And I was able to configure with my dad and my brother, who are landscapers and teachers, and I have a bunch of berry bushes, strawberries and blackberries. I have 3 apple trees, a fig tree, 2 pawpaw trees, a cherry tree. And I just took the persimmon tree out and replaced it with a peach tree because it was producing, but the persimmons were small and hard to eat. And I want things that I can get production from. The only thing I don't get good production from are apple trees, and I believe that's twofold. One, apples are one of the most heavily pesticided crops that we know of, and I don't pesticide anything. And 2, I think there's specific ways how to trim apple trees and to remove excess buds that I'm not privy of, and I haven't really worked on too much. And thirdly, squirrels just absolutely love apples. But if you're in this area right now in North Jersey, right now you could start planting for sure your herbs, your collards, your kales, your romaine, radishes, beets, celery. Those things you can safely plant now. And if you buy your plants like the tomatoes and those other types of things, I would wait. My father always told me Mother's Day was when you could plant the rest of everything around here, North Jersey anyway. Maybe not up by you, Wanda Lee, but in this area. And I even find that gets a little bit extended with cucumbers. Just a little side tip: cucumbers are very sensitive to cold. Can you grow cucumbers there, Wanda
Oh
Lee?
yeah,
Because they
yeah,
are that you can.
yeah,
But
but
you have to
not
plant them
now.
probably you have to plant like in June probably, I
Well,
bet.
a lot of those more sensitive things, a lot of my gardener patients will have said, after the first full moon in June.
Yeah. Okay. So we're like I said, we're almost about a month or 2 to 3 weeks, but that sounds about right. And that's a great point too, that you could plant these things pretty late, and then once the weather warms and kicks up, it's amazing how fast they can
Oh, it really
grow.
is. It really is. And just before we end, the one thing I would like to say, and I say it to my patients all the time this time of year, treat gardening like exercise. Warm up, stretch, take breaks, stretch afterwards, ice if you need to. But gardening is strenuous. Gardening is exercise. I know it's fun, which is great. So sometimes you don't think it's the same as going to the gym, but it is exercise and it is strenuous. So treat your body as if.
I envision myself 40 years from now, Wanda Lee, being that little old Italian guy that we talk about, except I won't be little. I'm tall. I'm 6'4".
Yeah,
Maybe a little bit crouched over,
yeah.
wearing a funny looking hat, wearing a flannel, having my knee braces, and tinkering around my garden until my very last dying breath. At least that's what I envision at this point. So, again, as always, share what you plant. What do you love to plant? What do you love to grow? What flowers do you love? We'd love to hear some positivity, good thoughts, fun thoughts, things that you guys love to do. Please share with us. Wanda Lee, any last thoughts?
No, I think we covered it. I'm just so excited that it is spring because of all the things that are canceled, spring is not canceled.
It is not. And be awesome and never unawesome.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.